Brazil's former president Jair Bolsonaro has condemned, quote, pillaging and invasions of public buildings. And of course, for more, we are joined by Dr. Sean Burgess. He's assistant professor of global and international studies at Carleton University. Doctor, I want to get your initial reaction to what's taking place right now in Brazil, and coming so soon after Mr. Lula's inauguration. Are you surprised by this latest upheaval?
I'm a little bit. I thought we had maybe got past the silliness. There was rumors of, well, that they found the materials for making a truck bomb that was going to be potentially set off close to the airport in Brasilia before Lula's inauguration. And it looked a little bit like there was a lot of hot air going on, but I had hoped that this kind of wanton destruction, there's no act of terrorism is really how the Brazilians are describing it, wasn't going to take place.
And Mr. Lula was critical of the police response to the assault on Brazil's institutions. So what did you make of how it was all handled?
Yeah, that's a really interesting one, because Bolsonaro's idea is that he's very tight with the police. But there's a couple of ways to look at it. One of them is that what's the ambition here? Do you want to kind of contain the process and stop lots of people getting hurt and being injured, being killed? Or are you wanting to clamp down right away? And I think, for many residents of places like the northeast of Bahia, where it's a very different racial demographic, the favelas in Rio, the periphery of Sao Paulo, if this had taken place there, I think we would have seen a really, really different reaction. So I think, in some ways it's fortunate that it was in Brasilia with very middle class, particular racial demographic in place. The other thing is that you have a federal district government that's tightly aligned to Bolsonaro, and that maybe they could have been acting a little bit more forcefully with a little bit better preparation. Like when you see the film of the Congress being stormed, there's almost nobody there behind those fences. They've got some canisters of tear gas, and they sort of very quickly decide that they're not going to win the fight and to back off. But conversely, when the order came to rein it in, they acted very forcefully and very quickly.
Indeed. And Mr. Lula has blamed Bolsonaro for the attacks, who has denied responsibility. But based on your observation, what more can you tell us about his role in the riots, and what kind of repercussions do you expect for the former leader? Or would this sort of only divide the country even more?
Well, it's interesting. I think this is a massive mistake by the people who are pro-Bolsonaro. So the reason they're doing this is that they thought that Bolsonaro said, it's a problematic election. I shouldn't have lost. It was stolen. But he said, well, I have to accept the courts. It's the way the system is. And then he ran away to Orlando. And, he's sitting in there in a restaurant eating Kentucky Fried Chicken all by himself, from what we can see. What's really interesting from this, though, is the speed of the reaction from the people who backed Bolsonaro for the last 4 years, who backed him through the campaign. The leader of his own party in Congress came out and said, this is a blight and a shame on all Brazilians. This is not what Bolsonaro wants. This is not what we want. Protesting is fine, making noise is fine, but invading civic buildings, national buildings, this is off the table, and it's illegal, and the security forces need to track everybody down. So what may have unwittingly happened here is, because it's created such a direct threat to democratic institutions, which everybody in Brazil is quite sensitive about, it may have suddenly given that unifying factor that Lula needs to bind a Congress where he doesn't have a majority in his coalition to him and get him to work to actually create some sort of a national unity government to go forward. Now, that relies on Lula's political skill, which is considerable. He is the consummate deal maker. He's an extremely pragmatic politician, very skilled at managing people. Meanwhile, Bolsonaro ran away. He took off before he lost his immunity from prosecution. And, he may be sending messages out on WhatsApp or what have you, but he's not there anymore. And all the people who would speak for him in Brazil are now coming out very forcefully against what happened today, saying that this is not the way forward.
So where does this leave Bolsonaro then, other than in Kentucky Fried Chicken in Orlando? Some lawmakers in the U.S. have called for his extradition, yes, which could present a headache for U.S. authorities. How do you think they'll handle his stay in Florida?
Well, I guess it's pretty easy for the U.S. authorities, for the ICE and the Border Patrol. Presumably, he's in the U.S. on a tourist visa, so when it expires, he has to leave. It's not like he's been given asylum or special visa, as far as I know, to be in the United States for an extended period of time. So that would be one way out of it. Just kind of let the system do its own thing. I think the idea of preemptively expelling any political leader or any individual from your country simply because there might be somebody who's upset somewhere else is deeply problematic. It doesn't matter whether you're on the left or the right, whether you're important or you're just somebody who said some things that some other people didn't like at some point. If Lula, well, I wouldn't be Lula. If the prosecutorial authorities in Brazil bring charges against Bolsonaro, then we're into a different discussion. But like with Trump, it's not altogether clear that, while there's lots that Bolsonaro did that is highly objectionable and for which we'd like to see him held account, acting unethically is not necessarily the same thing as acting illegally, unfortunately. So we'll have to wait and see what happens on this.
You brought up Mr. Trump. I mean, it happened almost 2 years ago to the day of the attacks in the U.S. Capitol. But do you see any parallels? And could the attack in Brazil have been sort of inspired by the actions of the Trump supporters?
Absolutely. No January 6th, and this doesn't happen. I think that's exactly what they were hoping to do. There is a notable difference between January 6th and what happened today, though. On January 6th, despite the assault on Congress and despite the attacks against the security forces there, and despite the moving around of pieces of the symbols and the instruments of democracy in the Capitol, you didn't get the same level of wanton destruction of, what they call the national patrimony. So you've got key works of art, key symbols that are in that magical, mysterious building by Niemeyer, which is the Congress, that were wantonly destroyed. And when you watch the YouTube or the Instagram live feeds that have been put up by people, they talk about, we're going to come in, we're going to burn everything, we're going to destroy everything, we're going to rip everything apart. So it wasn't really the idea of the people coming in to occupy the halls of power to restore an injustice. It was more like just crazed toddlers lashing out, trying to rip everything down and destroy as much as they could. And we see this across the Plaza dos Tres Poderes. You even have, there's a famous statue of justice in front of the Supreme Court, and it's vandalized. This is not the stuff we saw happening. So it's the same idea, but possibly with even less class, I guess would be the way to put it.